crazy weekend with Nico Iamaleava at Tennessee. It's a story in college football. I feel like it's the story in football as we're in this like weird lull before the draft. People are just looking for juicy takes. Here's where I'm at with Nico. He's not the bad guy. I watched the Stephen A. Smith clip yesterday with Shannon Sharp when they're all like, oh, he's the issue, all that. He is not the bad guy. The structure's the bad guy, or the structure is the problem. The fact that he's even put in this spot where we don't have solid contracts, where it's all, nothing's out in the public. It's done through collectives and not the actual athletic department. Nico's not the problem. I just think there's a huge piece to the story that we have not uncovered. It just doesn't make sense. Why would you leave Tennessee on paper, if you believe everything you read, getting paid $2 million, $2.5 million, whatever it is, a team that has a chance at a playoff spot, to then leave for less money at a worse team? That doesn't make business sense. That doesn't make psychological sense. So I think there's something off there. And I'm just going to speculate here, but did he not get a payment that he was supposed to get? I've never heard anyone talk about how was his money paid out, right? He came out of high school and it was, hey, Tennessee's giving him $10 million. We don't know if that $10 million was paid front-loaded, back-loaded. If he already has it in his pocket, let's say he was paid $10 million over the past 2 years, and he's not due any more money, business is business, man. I can't totally blame him for assuming, let's just say, assuming he has that money in his pocket 2 years ago. I can't blame him for trying to renegotiate. If he's looking over there at Carson Beck with an elbow injury, getting $4 million, well, did some other school promise him the bag and like didn't deliver? I think there's a piece that we're missing because it doesn't add up. And one big argument that I keep hearing is like, yo, he's not good enough to deserve this money. That's exactly why he should keep holding out, because he's not necessarily a surefire first-round quarterback. So you got to go get your money while you can do it. He's a top 10 college quarterback right now. Now's his window to go get that money, because it's not a surefire thing that he's going to go and have that opportunity at the next level in the NFL. Versus, I'm not as high on Drew Aller right now. I think he's a good college quarterback. But if you're Drew Aller and people are kind of penciling you in to be a top 5, top 10, top end quarterback for next year's draft, well, then maybe you don't rock the boat with NIL money, because you got a good thing at Penn State. You've got a lot of experience. Just do your business at the college level, and then the paychecks will come when it's time for the NFL. For Nico, I think there's a world where he has a 2025 and he could get into that first round draft pick. But for the same reason people are saying he doesn't deserve that money, basically saying he's not good enough to command $4 million. But that's why you hold out, because the leverage for potentially the last time in his career, or one of the last times in his career, is right now. I will say, and I've never heard, or I haven't heard anyone really talk about this, but the big talking point with him coming out of high school, because I live in Southern California. I remember when he was like the big time guy, and this is before Bryce Underwood. Nico was the first guy in this like NIL world where it was, hey, he's going to Tennessee to get $10 million. We forget that Tennessee was not where it is now when Nico went to Tennessee. Tennessee is a great program, obviously. They haven't been elite during my lifetime, outside of when my old play caller won him a natty, T. Martin, when I was, 3 years old. But he took a chance on Tennessee. Now Tennessee's kind of like arrived as a playoff team and whatnot. But the point with him at coming out of high school was, hey, they're giving him $10 million. There was indecision. I literally remember hosting a radio show with Jeff Schwartz about this. There was indecision about how is that $10 million paid out. If you just do simple math, $10 million across 4 years, that's 2.5 a year. Well, if he's going to go to the NFL after 3 years, is that what, $3.33 million a year? That was kind of like crazy talk back then. Now that number kind of sounds appropriate. And I'm seeing a comment over here of like, hey, his best offer is $1 million. That's a bargain for him as a top 10 college quarterback with what the numbers out there that are being flown around. Carson Beck at $4 million. Right now, I would take Nico to start as my quarterback over Carson Beck. That might be a spicy take. I would take that if it was healthy. To me, that's not spicy with Carson Beck's arm situation. That ligament right there, that's sketchy to me. And someone's giving me, Nick, you don't like the Nico over Carson Beck? Clip it. I'll stand on business with that. Also because of upside too with Nico and what he could do. Now's the time that you have leverage. I hate, like everyone, the fact that you have like your dad or your uncle or your best friend's dad representing him, and there's not like legitimate agents and whatnot. All that stuff, not a fan of it, but I just don't think it's crazy talk that this is happening. But I will say, because I called the UNLV Oregon State game this past fall, 4 days after Matthew Sluka left the team at UNLV over an NIL dispute. And my number one takeaway was, this is the first domino to fall, but ultimately you need something like what happened with Matthew Sluka at UNLV to happen to a SEC or a Big Ten school, because the SEC and the Big Ten we all say, hey, college football needs a commissioner. We need contracts. We all need these things. The SEC and the Big Ten don't care because they're happy. They're getting paychecks. They're good to go. You need one of these out of left field factors, a la a Nico holdout, to happen to one of those schools for them to wake up and say, yeah, maybe we should change the structure. And the SEC and Tennessee and college football is lucky that this happened in the offseason and not during the season. Because if this happened during the season, imagine, I haven't looked at Tennessee's schedule, but imagine if this is happening 1 week before college football starts. Then Tennessee's scrambling to find their starting quarterback. They had one guy take all the reps all offseason, all the primetime matchups that ESPN, or in the SEC's case, it's ESPN, but if it was a Big Ten school, if it was Fox, like imagine if this is happening in August, in September, in October, or the big one that it's only a matter of time before something like this happens. What happens if a Nico type guy holds out over an NIL dispute before a college football playoff game? What happens if Tennessee is going on the road to Ohio State again, in Columbus, horseshoe, made for TV, all that, and he backs out over an NIL dispute? And you're going to say, oh, Max, that'll never happen. Well, let's say a collective does something shady and says, hey, we're going to give you $100, obviously not that much, and they give you $50 instead. And you're the quarterback of the team. You're trying to be the leader of the team. So you kind of say, hey, I'll ignore it. I'll ignore it. It's all good. It's kind of like the Matthew Stafford thing with the Rams, where he's like, all right, I'll keep playing this season. You guys restructure my contract, but you better believe, I'm coming at some point for my money. Well, what happens if a Nico type guy does that, looks the other way, trusts that good people are going to do the right thing, keeps going. Before you know it, it's the college football playoff. He's got all the leverage in the world. This is just an example. I'm not saying this is actually happening, but the Tennessee collective doesn't pay him whatever it was agreed upon, and he backs out in that game. And maybe it's not Nico. Maybe it's not a quarterback, but it could be an entire offensive line that bands together and says, Joey's Barbecue said they were going to pay us $100,000. That check hasn't cleared. We have leverage on our side. Sorry, we're backing out. That type of scenario is what needs to happen. I think Nico is heading that direction. But again, because it's the offseason and it didn't rock the whole boat in terms of TV contracts, and, it's not in the middle of the season, it's only a matter of time before a mid-season holdout happens with an SEC or a Big Ten school that rocks the boat, and I'm not going to say wakes up the SEC and the Big Ten because they're aware of all the things that are going on, but rocks the boat enough where action will have to be taken. Versus right now, we can say all day long of like, oh, we need contracts and all that. Nothing's happening. It's actually my biggest pet peeve. I've said this before on a live, but when big time college football voices come on and say, well, I'm not smart enough. We need contracts. We need a collective bargaining agreement, but I'm not smart enough. We've been saying that for 3 years. It's just a cop-out. We're smart enough to get this done. Just the leverage points and the incentives are not there.